They told us it was a graveyard run, just another salvage job near the burnt edge of the Andros belt. Old wreckage, maybe pre-war, probably scavenged dry 100 years ago. We were the crew that took the jobs no one else wanted. Small time, low payout, high risk. We didn't ask questions, we took the credits. The ship was just hanging there in the black like it was waiting for someone to claim it. No damage, no distress signal, no energy signatures, no ID tags. Just a cold, obsidian silhouette bigger than anything we'd ever seen. Not built by any known race, and definitely not by humans. We docked, of course. Curiosity always trumps caution when you're desperate. The airlock resisted at first, then hissed open on its own. No power, no lights, but the mechanisms were flawless. We stepped into a corridor made of a dark alloy that absorbed every bit of light we carried. It was cold, silent, and wrong in a way that made your bones ache. But the ship, it felt alive. The first sign that this wasn't just another derelict came when Foster touched a wall panel. Nothing. Then Morales. Still nothing. But when I brushed my hand against it, it lit up. Just a soft pulse of amber light, like a heartbeat recognizing its owner. Everyone froze. We all saw it. The look on Foster's face said everything. This wasn't just salvage anymore. This was first contact. And for some reason, this alien relic wanted something from me. More lights followed as I moved forward. Doors slid open before I could ask. Systems started humming to life, slow and cautious, like the ship was waking up after a long sleep. But only when I was near. Anyone else? Dead silence. We tried everything. Foster yelled commands. Morales hooked up translators. Nothing worked unless I was the one interacting. Not just doors, terminals, navigation hubs, engine diagnostics. They only responded to me. Try the bridge, Morales said, her voice tight with something between awe and fear. If it responds there too? The bridge was a cathedral of black stone and silver veins. And when I stepped in, every console lit up in slow, rippling waves. The ship welcomed me. It called me by name. I didn't tell the crew what I heard. The voice didn't sound human. It was ancient, layered like hundreds of whispers stacked into one. But it knew who I was. Not just my name. It knew things no one else did. Private memories, old regrets. Things buried so deep even I didn't visit them anymore. "This ship isn't dead," I whispered. "No," Foster said, stepping beside me. "It's waiting." That night I couldn't sleep. Not in our docked freighter, not knowing that thing, whatever it was still watching. Because that's how it felt. Every breath I took inside it, every step I could feel it learning. Not just from me, but about me. And I couldn't shake the thought. What if it wasn't coincidence? What if we didn't find the ship? What if the ship found us? I didn't tell the rest what the voice said that night. Not because I didn't want to, because I couldn't. It wasn't just the language. It was like the voice spoke around words, like it reached inside my head and injected understanding directly into my nerves. No sound, no syntax, just truth. Cold and invasive. And it knew me. It knew things that no black box scan or digital profile could know. It mentioned a name I hadn't heard in 15 years, one I buried when I left Earth behind. My brother. The voice called him the first wound. That's how deep it cut. That's how real it felt. Not just data. It knew what I felt when he died. It tasted my grief. I didn't tell Foster, didn't tell Morales. I just said the system responded with a diagnostic readout. Nothing special. But I watched them, and I saw what they were really thinking. Wonder. Fear. Greed. Especially Foster. He was ex-military. Clean-cut on the surface, but you could smell the rot beneath. A man like that doesn't see an ancient ship as a mystery. He sees it as leverage, control, a future. And I saw that gleam in his eyes. Same one I'd seen years ago when we raided that mining vessel in the Helios Loop. The gleam that says, kill if necessary. I stayed aboard that night, alone. I had to. The ship wouldn't let anyone else in without me. The others went back to our freighter to rest, or pretend to. I stayed in what I guessed was the command chamber, sitting in that high-backed chair shaped like it was made for me. It even adjusted to my posture, shifting like a liquid skeleton beneath me. And then the lights dimmed again. The ship was speaking. But not with words this time. I saw images, flashes in the air, not holograms, more like memories. War, fire, screaming stars. I saw ships, huge living things, ripped apart in the void. I saw towering humanoids made of stone and light falling to their knees in defeat. I saw Earth. No, not Earth, us, humans. But we were different, larger, more primal. We were worshipped. I stood up fast, heart thudding. The images vanished. The silence returned. I turned and slammed my hand against the nearest panel. "What the hell are you trying to show me?" The voice returned. Quieter this time. A whisper that crawled up my spine. "You are the echo, the last seed. You will remember. You will awaken the war." I stumbled back, breathing hard. My legs felt like ice. "Number, that's not me. I'm just a salvage hauler." No reply, just the pulsing amber light, slow and steady like a heartbeat in the dark. Foster returned in the morning with 2 things, Morales and a plasma cutter. "Why the hell are you armed?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Safety precaution," he said smoothly, lifting the weapon like it was just part of the toolkit. "You said this ship responds to you. That makes you the key, and we can't have the key running off and locking the rest of us out." Morales shot him a look, but said nothing. She was too busy scanning one of the active consoles I'd left running. "He's not lying," she said. "These systems are only responding to him. I've tried every interface, voice, touch, neural port. Nothing." Foster looked at me again. This time, he didn't hide the calculation in his eyes. "Then we stay close. No more solo tours. If the ship wants to talk, it talks while we're all listening." I didn't argue. There was no point. But that night the ship showed me more. This time it was more personal. The memory wasn't a battlefield. It was a temple. A huge, circular structure with carvings that shimmered as if alive. And at the center, humans. Hundreds of them. Standing tall, wrapped in armor that moved like liquid around their bodies. Weapons that bent gravity. Eyes that glowed with something ancient. And kneeling before them were others. Beings I didn't recognize. Not human. Some insect-like. Others too alien to describe. And all of them bowed, trembling. We weren't visitors to this ship. We were its makers, or our ancestors were. I woke up with blood on my lips. I'd bitten down so hard in my sleep I nearly cracked a molar. Morales was the first to suggest a theory out loud. "What if this isn't just an alien ship?" she asked, eyes glued to her screen. "What if it's part of us? Not metaphorically, literally." "Come again?" Foster grunted. "I've run biological scans on the interface points," she said. "This alloy, it reacts to his DNA. Only his. No known race in the Interstellar Council uses this kind of tech. No registration. No language-base match. But when he touches it, it lights up like it recognizes him." Foster's jaw tightened. "Are you saying he's part alien?" She hesitated. "I'm saying whatever made this ship..." They left something in us, in him. Maybe all of us, maybe just him. Foster looked at me like I was a puzzle he suddenly wanted to break open. We bring this to the council. We'll be gods. You understand that, right? I didn't answer, because I didn't trust what I was starting to feel. Every time I touched that ship, something shifted inside me. Not just mentally, physically. My reflexes were sharper, my vision clearer. I could hear things, subtle hums in the ship's walls like breathing. I could feel when systems powered on, even without seeing them. Something inside me was waking up, and the ship was smiling. It all snapped on the 4th day. Morales tried to access a locked chamber without me, a massive circular vault we hadn't dared to enter yet. She used the plasma cutter while Foster stood watch. The moment the seal broke, the ship reacted. Lights flared red. Doors slammed shut. Walls pulsed like arteries. The temperature dropped instantly. I ran toward the vault, systems opening for me with desperate urgency. When I reached them, the chamber had already swallowed both of them. The door was shut tight again. "Open it!" I shouted, slamming my palm against the control. Nothing. The ship was angry. A deep, resonant pulse vibrated through the floor, a warning. And then, a message appeared on the wall in sharp, foreign script, but I could read it. "You were warned. They are not welcome." I screamed until my throat bled, pounded on the metal until my knuckles split. But the chamber stayed locked. Hours passed, maybe more. Then, slowly, the door slid open. Foster was unconscious. Morales wasn't breathing. There were no marks on her, no wounds, just nothing, like the life had been unplugged. Foster came to an hour later, said he didn't remember what happened. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. He was shaking. He asked about Morales once. When I told him, he just nodded. Then he asked about the ship. "Does it still respond to you?" I didn't answer. Because I knew the truth now. The ship didn't just want me. It needed me, and it would kill for me without hesitation. Foster barely spoke after Morales died. He kept to the edge of the ship, barely stepping inside unless he had to. I didn't blame him. Whatever he saw in that chamber, it broke something in him. His hands shook constantly now. He muttered to himself when he thought I couldn't hear. This thing was intelligent. Not in the way AIs pretend to be. It wasn't mimicking thought. It was thought. It pulsed with it. Intent. And that intent had narrowed down to me. Over the next few days, I stopped trying to fight it. I stopped trying to be normal, because normal didn't exist anymore. Not here. My hands would tremble every time I touched the control panel, but the ship's systems would always respond gently. It was like it cared. Like it knew I was afraid and adjusted itself to ease me in. It began feeding me data, not just visual memories like before, but knowledge. Systems, blueprints, weapon schematics, historical logs. It was all encrypted, unreadable by any standard language. But my mind processed it like it was always meant to. Like unlocking a door in a house I'd forgotten I once lived in. I spent hours in that chamber, eyes locked to the cascading symbols across the main screen. It felt like I was learning everything humanity had lost, or was never meant to remember. And then I found the log. Or maybe it found me. It was short. Just one sentence burned into my skull like flame. Earth is a colony. You are the return. That's when the dreams started. They weren't just dreams. They were experiences, memories that weren't mine, but felt like they were. I stood on a black mountain above a city of spires and light. I watched ships like the one I was in now rise into the atmosphere. and behind me stood others. Humans. But they weren't like me. They were massive, ageless, adorned in armor that bent gravity. Their eyes glowed white. We had ruled the stars once, long before we ever crawled on Earth. And then came the fall. Somewhere, long ago, something broke us. Something hunted us. And the survivors, the last of our kind, fled to a backwater rock to hide. To forget. Earth wasn't home. It was hiding, and now something had found us again. Foster came to me 2 days after the dream started. He looked rough, gaunt, pale, eyes sunk into sockets that hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't move from the command chair. "About Morales?" I asked. He shook his head. "About you, about the ship, about what you're becoming." I flinched at that. Becoming? He pointed to my arm. I looked down. The veins beneath my skin were glowing faintly. Amber. Like the ship's lights. "You think I haven't noticed?" he said. "You don't eat, you don't sleep. You plug into that thing for hours, and when you come back, you know things no one taught you." I didn't answer. "Is it changing you?" he asked. "Are you still... you?" That question hung in the air like smoke. Was I? I still remembered Earth, still remembered my name. The bar where I got into a fight that cost me my job. The girl I left behind when I shipped out. The taste of bad whiskey. The ache of old regrets. But those memories felt distant now. Like stories I'd been told. Not things I lived. "Would it matter?" I finally asked. "If it is?" He didn't answer. Just stared at me for a long moment, then nodded like he'd made peace with something. "I'm getting out of here," he said. "I don't care if I have to rip our freighter loose with my hands. This place, this ship, it's wrong." "You think you can leave?" I asked quietly. His expression darkened. "I don't give a damn what it lets me do. I'm going to try." He turned and walked away. I sat there for a while, the ship humming beneath me like a heartbeat. I expected it to say something. Warn me. Maybe threaten him. But it didn't. And somehow that was worse. He made his move at night. I was in the chamber again, reviewing a star map that extended far beyond known council territory. The moment I felt the energy shift, I knew he was trying to bypass the dock controls again. And this time he brought explosives. The detonation rocked the hull. I was thrown across the room, my ears ringing. The emergency lights blinked red, and for the first time, the ship screamed. Not through speakers, through me. Pain surged in my chest like a punch from inside my lungs. I staggered up, vision doubling. Foster had found the core, and he was trying to kill it. I ran. The hulls twisted for him. I could feel it. The ship didn't show him mercy this time. Doors sealed, floors dropped, walls moved. I ran anyway. When I found him, he was already bleeding. One of the corridors had split open beneath him. A trap. He was hanging by one arm, coughing blood. His plasma cutter was gone, lost to the pit below. "Help me," he shouted when he saw me. I hesitated. Then the voice came again. "He is a relic. He will betray. Let the past die." I ignored it. I reached down, grabbed Foster's wrist, and pulled. The ship didn't fight me. Not this time. Maybe it was testing me, or maybe it knew what would happen next. We sat in silence after I dragged him out. He didn't thank me, didn't even look at me. "You've changed," he said. "Yeah. You're not human anymore." I looked down at my glowing arm. Then maybe it's time to stop pretending I ever was. That night, the ship opened the last chamber. It was deeper than the rest, hidden beneath a false floor I hadn't noticed before. I stepped through alone. Foster stayed behind, too broken to follow. Inside was a throne. Real this time. Not a chair, a throne. Ancient, obsidian, laced with silver veins. The walls pulsed with memory, and behind it, a body. Not human, not alien either. Something in between. Tall, armored in skin that looked like molten metal, eyes closed, still, preserved. I approached, and the body opened its eyes. It didn't move, just stared at me. And I knew it was me. Or rather, it had been me, a life long ago, a cycle forgotten, a warrior buried in flesh and ignorance and thrown to earth like seed in soil. I touched its chest, and everything came back. The moment I touched its chest, I stopped being who I was, not because I died, not because I forgot, but because I remembered everything. The soldier in the chamber wasn't a corpse. It was a recording, a biopreserved echo of a former self, suspended between life and death. Not quite a clone, not quite a ghost, something beyond what Earth's sciences could dream of. It opened my mind like a vault, flooding it with lifetimes. I had been him. I had worn that armor. I had commanded this ship. I had led a war so old the stars themselves had moved since then. And I had failed. Back then, we weren't scattered humans barely scratching the galaxy. We were conquerors, civilized, structured, absolute. We called ourselves the first line. Earth wasn't the origin. It was a graveyard, a hiding place we abandoned everything to create after the collapse. We hadn't been overthrown by stronger forces. We were betrayed. One of our own, one of the ascended, had turned against the core, used knowledge never meant for individuals, learned how to manipulate time, memory, identity. He didn't kill us. He unmade us, shattered our history, splintered our purpose, buried our essence in primitive shells. United States, humans. We were the broken fragments of gods. And now I was remembering what I had been. When I pulled back from the chamber, the ship's lights turned white. Not amber, not red. White, pure and blinding. The voice returned, no longer whispering. General Valor, you are restored. Command authorization reinstated. Do you wish to initialize the remaining fleets? I staggered back, my head pounding. General Valor, that was me. That is me. The memories weren't vague dreams anymore. I remembered issuing orders from the Prime Bastion, remembered orbital sieges, remembered the last time I saw the Ascended traitor, and how I failed to stop him before he fractured the truth across the stars. I looked down at my hands. The glow wasn't just in my veins anymore. It had spread across my skin like veins of light, pulsing with every heartbeat. Foster was right. I wasn't human anymore. But then again, maybe I never was. When I returned from the chamber, Foster was waiting, barely standing. He looked like he hadn't eaten or slept in days. Maybe longer. His skin had a gray pallor to it, and his eyes were sunken, hollowed out by fear. He looked at me and didn't speak for a while. Then finally, "What are you?" I didn't lie. Not this time. "I used to be like you," I said. "Before I was put on Earth. Before I forgot. The ship reminded me." He laughed, a dry, cracked thing that didn't sound like amusement. "So what now? You grow wings? Turn into some glowing god?" "No," I said. "I reclaim what was stolen." He looked around at the dark, towering halls of the ship, the way the lights pulsed with my presence. "And us? The rest of humanity? Just collateral?" I looked at him for a long time before answering. That depends on what you do next. He didn't like that answer, but he didn't fight it. He just turned and walked away, back to the broken little corner of the ship where he slept. Maybe to rot, maybe to pray. I didn't care anymore. The more I remembered, the less I felt human emotion. Regret, yes, but not empathy, not fear. Those things were fading fast, replaced by something deeper, colder, ancient. Duty. The next 2 days were spent in the ship's nerve core. The interface wasn't technological. It was biological, like placing my mind into a larger consciousness. The ship and I were the same now. It showed me the position of the remaining dormant vessels. Hundreds of them, scattered across void space, buried on lifeless moons, hidden beneath dead planets. Each one containing another piece of us, another soldier, another weapon, another key to the old war. I sent the signal. Reactivation beacon initiated. Frequency locked. All surviving vessels will converge. And just like that, the sleeping gods would begin to stir. But not all of them were loyal. That was the final memory, the one buried beneath every other. Before I was sealed into human form, I had captured the traitor. But I didn't kill him. I sealed him in another ship, identical to mine, the Void Ark. Its location was erased even from my own knowledge, buried by protocol, sealed until the signal awakened him too. Which meant he was awake now. It started with static. The ship flared a warning. A counter-frequency was being broadcast. He was trying to jam me, to suppress the other ships, to stop the fleet from rising, and worse, he was calling to humans. I saw it, flickering through the ship's main interface, messages sent across subspace channels, propaganda, false truths. Alien threat detected. Unknown vessel compromised. Biological corruption. Seek and destroy. He was painting me as the threat. And they'd believe him. The humans on Earth, the Council, the Armadas, they wouldn't hesitate to wipe out something they couldn't understand. Unless I got there first. I powered the ship's main drive. The core roared to life, light bending around it as it tore open a rift into subspace. The jump path was direct. Earth. Not to conquer. Not to destroy. To tell the truth. Or what little of it was left. Foster tried to stop me. "I won't let you drag the whole species into your damn ancient war," he said, holding a sidearm, hands trembling. "You think I wanted this?" I asked. "I was you once, lost, angry, confused. Then the truth found me." "This isn't truth," he said. "It's madness. You're playing God." I stepped toward him. He didn't fire. He couldn't. Because somewhere, deep down, he felt it too. The same whisper that lived in the walls. The blood memory. He dropped the gun. And I walked past him. As the ship tore into subspace, I stood on the bridge and watched the stars distort. The coordinates were locked. The war had never ended. Only paused. And now, humanity would remember what it was. Whether it wanted to or not. The subspace corridor collapsed with a thunderous ripple as the ship exited warp near Earth orbit. Nothing had changed. Cities still glowed beneath the clouds. The orbital stations drifted peacefully. Civilian transports buzzed in the upper atmosphere. Earth, to the unaware, was the same cradle of ignorance it had always been, sleeping peacefully while the stars burned around it. But my ship didn't go unnoticed. Within minutes, planetary defense systems lit up. Satellite scanners pinged us. Warships scrambled from lunar bases. The response was rapid, automatic, and terrified. I watched it all through the ship's lens. Panicked alerts, scrambled frequencies, warnings in every Earth dialect screaming the same thing. Unidentified vessel. No registry, no clearance. Arm and prepare for confrontation. They had no idea they were aiming at their own. "Foster," I said without turning. He stood at the back of the bridge, arms folded, still gaunt but steadier than before. "Yeah? If they board, I won't stop the ship." He nodded. I figured. "You can leave," I said. "There's a secondary craft. It's fast enough to outrun what's coming." He let out a dry laugh. "You think I'd survive 5 minutes out there? Earth sees me coming out of this thing, they'll paint me as infected." "You're not wrong." He stepped closer. "But let's say I don't leave. Let's say I help. What then?" I turned and met his eyes. "Then you get to see the truth with your own eyes. What we were. What we still are." His jaw clenched. "You better be right." We sent no beacon. I didn't want to announce myself like a fool. The Council wouldn't understand. They'd see war, not memory. I needed something smaller. Personal. I reached into the ship's neural web and found her. Eloise. An Earthborn linguist and signal analyst I knew from my old life, before memory. She used to decode deep space transmissions. She had the mind to comprehend what I'd send. She had also been someone I loved once. Not that she'd remember. I sent a pulse, encrypted with an old code, something only she and I would understand, an ancient joke we shared during our last training rotation back when we were nobodies. If anything could get her attention, it was that. They didn't fire on us. Not immediately. Instead, we were hailed, voice only, tight beam. "This is orbital command to unknown vessel. You are in violation of Earth space protocols. Identify or we will engage." I answered, "I am not your enemy." A pause. Then, state designation. I didn't hesitate. "Command General Valor of the First Line, last surviving vessel of the Core Warden Initiative. Earth is under threat from a traitor awakened by subspace resonance. You must not engage." Silence. Then static. Then, "This is some kind of sick prank," another voice said. Younger, nervous. "There is no such designation in Council archives." "That's because your archives are broken," I said. The first warship approached, its hull bristling with missile tubes and plasma coils. A Council-class cruiser. State-of-the-art by human standards. It looked like a child's toy from where I stood. Foster shifted. "They're going to fire." "They won't get the chance." I reached into the ship's systems. The response was immediate. A soft pulse rippled outward from our hull, an electromagnetic null field, silent and invisible. It kissed their sensors, curled around their circuits, and shut them down. The cruiser drifted, dead in space. No shots fired, no alarms triggered. Just silence. The crew inside would be safe, confused but unharmed. I wasn't here to kill humans. Not yet. Then she answered. A private transmission. Voice only. "Who are you?" Eloise asked. Even after all these years, I knew that voice. "I'm the part of you that remembers what you were," I said. "We served together. Once, a long time ago. I need your help." Another long pause. "You sent the Orion joke cipher," she said. "Yes. No one else knows that." "I know." Her voice dropped. "You're not human, are you?" "I am," I said. "Just not like them." "You expect me to believe that you're some ancient god in a relic ship, come back to warn Earth of a cosmic traitor?" "No," I said. "I expect you to feel what you already suspect, that Earth isn't where we began, that we've always been missing something, that the past has been off. Her breathing changed. I've seen the anomalies, she whispered. Artifacts, tech that shouldn't exist, buried signals with language constructs that predate humanity's rise by millennia. We've all seen them, but we're told to classify and ignore. Because someone doesn't want you to remember, I said, and he's coming. She agreed to meet me, under the radar, no authorization, one shuttle, cloaked, unarmed. She docked alone. Foster watched her like a hawk, but I told him to stand down. She walked into the ship's interior like someone walking through a church built by ghosts. Her hands shook as she touched the walls. They feel familiar, she whispered. They should. She turned to me slowly. You were telling the truth. I wish I wasn't. She helped us connect to the planetary systems, bypassing council oversight. A risky move. But she was good. Too good. I suspected, somewhere deep down, she had always been one of us. A sleeper like me. Together, we unlocked the coordinates of the Void Ark, the prison ship of the traitor. It was moving. Fast. Its trajectory was clear. Earth. And then, he spoke. Not through a signal, not through a broadcast. Through me. My head snapped back as a sharp pain ripped through my spine. My vision blurred, my chest heaved. Then a voice, cold, elegant, mocking. Still playing hero valor? Still clinging to the corpse of humanity like it matters? Get out of my head, I growled. You had your chance. You failed once. Now you're dragging them into a war they can't win. They deserve the truth. They deserve extinction. You know it. Weak, broken fragments of what we were. Let them fade. Join me. Finish what we started. I bit down, hard, blood filling my mouth. I'll kill you myself. Then come find me, General. One last time. The link snapped. He was in orbit now, in the dark side of the moon, masked, silent. The Void Ark was bigger than mine, older, meaner, and it was awake. We had hours, maybe less. What's our move? Foster asked. I looked at him, then at Eloise, then back at the stars. We finish what we started, I said. And this time, we don't fail. They saw him before they understood him. The Void Ark broke from the moon's shadow like a nightmare stretching its limbs. No arrival signal, no protocol, just sudden, massive presence. Bigger than my ship, darker than any council vessel, and older than any records could trace. Its surface wasn't just black. It shimmered, reflecting nothing, like light itself refused to acknowledge it. Earth's defense grid lost its mind. Satellites turned. Missile arrays armed. All global networks began to stutter and choke. Hundreds of orbiting systems went dark. Subspace relays blinked out. One by one. Eloise stared at the screens. He's silencing Earth. No, I said, staring at the patterns blooming across the planetary grid. He's rewriting it. The Void Ark wasn't attacking. It was infecting. Broadcasting a new language, one that burrowed into firewalls, bypassed quantum keys, and nested deep inside the AI cores. Not brute force, persuasion, like a god whispering to machines. Even the humans wouldn't realize they were being erased until it was done. He wasn't here to fight me. Not yet. He was here to make Earth forget me all over again. We had to strike first. I'm going over there, I said. Eloise blinked. Alone? He wants me. He'll let me in. Foster crossed his arms. And then what? You talk him to death? No, I said, stepping towards the command vault. I remind him what we used to be, and then I kill him. the ship's inner systems began adjusting, crafting a boarding shuttle tailored to bypass the Void Ark's defenses, a vessel built from memory, not design. My memory. "Wait," Eloise said. "I'm going with you." I looked at her, and for a moment the memories twisted again, flashes of her face from a different lifetime, laughing in starlight, bleeding in my arms, promising she'd follow me into hell. "You sure?" I asked. "I think I've always been a part of this, even if I didn't remember it." She was right. The ship had responded to her. Subtly. Quietly. Like it knew her blood, too. She was one of us. The shuttle launched. No escort, no weapons. Just a quiet, slipstream ride across dead silence. And still, no resistance. The Void Ark welcomed me. Its doors opened without command, the corridors lit in red pulses as we walked through, casting long shadows behind us. I felt it, his presence, woven through the metal like breath inside lungs. Eloise touched the wall. "It's watching." "No," I said. "It's listening." We found him in the heart of the ship, standing atop a platform surrounded by living code, a storm of symbols swirling in the air, rewriting reality itself. He turned slowly. He looked human, but he wasn't. Not anymore. His face was too perfect, too still. His eyes glowed faintly blue, like glass filled with lightning. His voice, when it came, didn't echo from his throat. It rose from the walls around us. "General Valor," he said. "Traitor," I replied. He smiled. "Still clinging to labels? Still playing soldier while the universe forgets your name?" I stepped forward. "They won't forget again. I'll make sure of it." He tilted his head. "Why bother? Humanity chose ignorance. We offered them infinity. They built cages of politics and fear." "They didn't choose it," I said. "You made them forget. You broke the cycle." "Because the cycle was flawed," he shouted suddenly, the code flaring around him. "We built empires on control, power, fear. I gave them freedom." "You gave them amnesia," I said. "You stripped their soul and left them hollow." Eloise stepped forward. "You erased truth." He looked at her. His expression twitched. Recognition, hesitation, then mockery. "Ah, the linguist, the broken mirror." He smiled again. "You still don't remember the way you screamed when the last gate fell." She didn't blink. "But I will." The traitor sneered. "You want war, Valor? You want to play gods and monsters again?" He raised his hands, and the chamber screamed. Code twisted into form. Armor wrapped his body in liquid black steel. Wings of hard light flared from his back. Weapons folded into his arms. He wasn't speaking anymore. He was becoming. I didn't hesitate. The ship responded to my will. Armor bloomed from my skin like a second soul, white and gold and jagged with memory. The ground beneath me pulsed, my hands ignited with gravitational blades, ancient weapons forged from collapsed matter. Eloise stepped back, not in fear, in awe. The traitor struck first. We fought like storms colliding. Blades sang, energy cracked the air. Each strike rippled through the ship. Sparks flew like blood. Our movements tore gravity in knots. He moved faster than I remembered. Smarter. His form adapted, mimicked, countered. He wasn't just fighting. He was studying. "You're weaker," he taunted, blocking a downward slash. "You let them rot you, all those years as a human, a shell." "I remembered what it's like to care," I said, driving a boot into his chest. "You should try it sometime." He staggered, snarled, and responded with a shockwave that shattered the platform. We fell. Together. Through levels of the void arc that hadn't seen light in 1,000 years. We landed hard, the impact splitting the floor. And he laughed. "You always thought you could save them," he said, voice echoing through broken steel. "You think truth makes them better?" I stood. Truth gives them a chance. He rose too, eyes burning. "They'll hate you when they remember. The gods they once worshipped became tyrants. You led them. You broke them." "Then I'll pay that debt," I said. "With your blood?" We clashed again, harder this time. No words, just violence. Just the sound of old gods finishing what they started. Back on my ship, Foster watched the void arc pulse with energy. "What's happening in there?" The ship answered. "Judgment." I hit the deck hard, armor screeching across ancient metal. The air sizzled around me as the traitor's weapon cracked the walls. A split second later, he was on me again. Blades drawn from pure code, arms swinging like living executioners. Every strike aimed to erase, not wound. He wasn't just fighting to win. He was fighting to unmake me. I rolled out of the arc of his next blow, the ground erupting behind me. Heat blistered the air. My armor was already fracturing, seams splitting under pressure that bent time. The void arc didn't obey gravity the way it used to. Not for him. He'd rewritten its laws. "You're not fighting me," he hissed. "You're fighting evolution, progress. I left the gods behind for a reason." "You're no god," I spat, rising to one knee. "Just a coward who rewrote history because he couldn't live with it." His eyes flashed. History was a cage. He struck again. I caught his blade with mine, metal singing against memory. Our faces were inches apart. I could see what he had become, not just alien, hollow, all that brilliance, all that power, and yet he looked dead behind the light. "You think they'll thank you?" he growled. "The humans you protect? You think they want to remember the wars, the blood, the arrogance of their origin?" "They deserve the choice," I grunted. "They deserve mercy," he said, driving a knee into my gut. "And mercy is forgetting." We crashed through another level. It wasn't even a room anymore, just a hollow core where data storms howled like spirits. Symbols rotated through the air like blades. Time felt slower. My limbs moved like they were wrapped in concrete. He was controlling the environment now, warping the tempo of the fight. And I was losing. Every strike cost more energy. Every parry shook my bones. He was learning my rhythm, adjusting in real time. His movements blurred, strikes that bent light, limbs that extended unnaturally, armor that adapted like a parasite. I could barely breathe. Then I remembered Eloise. Somewhere above, she was still inside this monster of a ship. Still waiting. Watching. Maybe praying. I couldn't fall here. Not again. I slammed both fists into the floor. The ship responded. Not the void arc. Mine. Across the divide of space, across the silence of centuries, it felt me. Command acknowledged. The floor beneath us exploded. I was yanked upward, gravity reversing. The traitor rose with me, off balance. I twisted midair, activated my internal reserves. The armor flared, reigniting with golden light. I drove into him like a meteor, crashing into the upper deck and pinning him beneath tons of debris. He howled. Not in pain, in fury. "You still think you're right?" he spat through broken teeth. "After everything?" "I don't need to be right," I said. "I just need you gone." Then came the second voice. Eloise. "I found it!" she yelled through comms. "His core, his signal amplifier. It's not just running the ship, it's running him." I froze. The traitor's head whipped toward the sound. No! He surged upward, throwing me back. I hit the wall, armor cracking. He was fast again, too fast. But I didn't need to chase. Eloise knew what to do. The amplifier core was buried in the bridge of the void arc, a crystalline spire laced with neural circuits and biological veins. It pulsed with dark light, humming like a beast dreaming of war. Eloise stood before it, breath ragged. It knew her too. Only one command, it said in a voice like crushed glass. Erase or activate. She looked up. What happens if I erase? He dies. She swallowed. And activate? He becomes what he was before, all of it, all memories restored, all power, no restraint. She hesitated. Her hands shook. The traitor burst into the chamber a second later, face contorted in raw desperation. Don't, he snarled. You don't know what that thing is, what I was, what we were. I think I do, she whispered. Then you know, he said, slowing now, voice softer. We were monsters, titans, tyrants. I tried to fix that. By lying, by saving. He stepped closer. You want truth? Truth is blood and memory and fire. The moment you activate that core, he becomes the weapon again. The killer. So do I. So do you. She looked at me as I stumbled into the room behind him, bleeding, cracked, burned. He turned toward me. We stood there, the three of us. Memory. Betrayal. Choice. Then she placed her hand on the core and whispered, let them decide. She activated it. The void arc screamed. A wave of energy pulsed outward like a sun detonating inside the hull. The air warped. Time cracked. He dropped to his knees. I dropped with him. Our minds tore open. The past flooded in. I saw him, not as a traitor, but as a brother in arms, my second, my closest friend. I saw the fall, the burning cities, the betrayal, but also the fear. He hadn't destroyed memory out of arrogance. He'd done it out of guilt. We had been gods, and we had done terrible things. We collapsed side by side, breathing hard. No longer enemies, just survivors of a cycle too old to keep spinning. Now what? Eloise asked. I looked at him. He didn't answer. He just closed his eyes. The void arc was dying. Not burning, not collapsing, just releasing. As if holding its breath for centuries and finally letting go, the activation of the core hadn't just affected him, it had ruptured the old seals across the ship's body. Symbols dimmed, hallways relaxed, lights pulsed in long, soft waves, not of warning, but of peace. A kind of death, maybe. He didn't move for a long time. Not dead, not broken. Just sitting beside the core with his head tilted back, eyes shut, armor dimmed and open at the seams. I watched him, arms crossed against my own bruised ribs. You remember now, I said. He nodded slightly. All of it. So do I. He opened his eyes. They weren't blue anymore, just gray. Human. Tired. You came to kill me, he said. I did. Still going to? I didn't answer. Eloise stood beside me. Her hand had left the core, but her fingers still glowed faintly with the echo of its touch. She looked at him, not with hatred, but with something else. Pity or understanding. I read the logs, she said softly. You weren't wrong about what we were. What we did. No, he replied. And that's why I buried it. The history, the names, the language, all of it. Because we weren't heroes. We were gods playing games with planets. The war was a cover. The real sin was how easily we justified it. They wouldn't have, he said. You think Earth could have carried the weight of what we were? The Council? The colonies? They'd tear each other apart the moment they realized they came from monsters. He wasn't wrong. And that was the problem. The truth wasn't noble. The truth was ugly. We weren't lost kings or forgotten warriors. We weren't romanticized saviors left behind by time. We were conquerors who fell on our own swords. We ruled with brilliance, but without restraint. We were feared, worshipped, and we burned half the stars we touched. And when it all broke, when the betrayals came, we hid the truth not to protect it, but because we couldn't bear to admit what we'd become. So we buried ourselves in flesh and bone, became humans, mortal, limited, forgetful, because it was easier to believe we were born small than to remember we had once been giants. The ship's systems continued to fall quiet. The Void Ark was dying because its purpose had ended. The last protocol had run. The last argument made. The final choice now belonged not to machines, but to us. I looked at Eloise. You don't have to stay in this, I said. This was never your war. Yes, it was, she replied, even if I didn't remember. Her eyes met mine. We all carry pieces of the past. Yours are just louder. She turned towards the traitor, toward the man who had nearly unmade history. What do we do with him? She asked. He looked at me. Execute me, if you're still clinging to duty. I won't stop you. I considered it. I really did. There was logic in it. Justice, maybe even mercy. End the cycle with a clean cut. Let Earth live on in its illusion and take the truth back to the void. But then I thought of the choice Eloise had made. Not to kill, not to erase, but to awaken. I turned and walked to the nearest console. My armor receded as I moved. The ship still knew me, still loved me in its way. Broadcast the core memory archive, I said. To all human channels, all frequencies. Eloise inhaled sharply. You sure? They deserve to know. The ship paused, like it was waiting one last time for me to take it back. I didn't. The message began to send. A flood of images, languages, memories, code so ancient it cracked open the newer systems just to fit inside. Earth's grids trembled as it passed through. Defense satellites blinked, civilian channels stuttered, and then silence and understanding. Across Earth, across the moons, across the listening worlds of the Council, one truth rang out. You were more. And you forgot. For hours, no one responded. Foster, still aboard our ship, watched from orbit as Earth trembled. He didn't call. He didn't run. He just waited. Then came the first reply. Not from governments, from people, messages short, raw, confused. Is this real? What does it mean? Were we gods? Did we fall? Do we rise again? They weren't afraid. They were awake. Days passed. Earth didn't burn. The Council didn't attack. No fleets arrived to silence us. Instead, ships began to move, not to war, but to listen, to ask, to learn. Small teams arrived in orbit, historians, scientists, sleepers like Eloise who began to remember strange things at the sight of ancient words. They came to understand, to rebuild what had been buried. The traitor never left the Void Ark. He stayed, alone, as it drifted quietly into the outer rim. I was built for war, he said before the doors sealed. I don't belong in this new version of the truth. Maybe you will, I said. Someday. He shook his head. Tell them I was the villain. It'll be easier that way. He was wrong. But I let him go. Eloise stayed with me. We turned my ship into a beacon, a floating library of memory and truth. We didn't lead. We didn't command. We just reminded. Because the truth wasn't a crown or a throne or a gun. It was a mirror. And now, finally, humanity had looked into it. One night, I stood alone in the ship's heart. The original body, Valor's old self, still rested in its vault. But I didn't need it anymore. Because I remembered everything. And I chose to become more than I had been. Not a god, not a soldier, just a man who carried truth in his blood. "Are you afraid?" Eloise asked, stepping beside me. I looked at Earth below. "No," I said. "For the first time in centuries, I think I'm ready." "For what?" I smiled. "To see what they become." The stars above Earth hadn't changed. Even after everything, after memory returned, after ships stirred, after the truth was whispered through every system, they still shined with the same cold, quiet brilliance they always had. Watching, silent, unmoved. But the world beneath them had changed. Not all at once. Not with fire or banners or marching fleets. The change was slower, quieter, like a forest thawing after centuries of winter. It began in conversations, in children asking questions their textbooks didn't have answers for, in old engineers looking at ancient ruins and suddenly understanding what they were built for, in dreams, dreams of fire and gold and endless stars. I didn't stay in orbit forever. Neither did Eloise. The council invited us, at first as witnesses, then as consultants, then as something else entirely. They didn't know what to call us. Some said ancestors, others relics. A few called us imposters. That was fine. We weren't there to be believed, just to stand still long enough for the world to catch up. And it did. Barely. They didn't all want the truth. A portion of the council rejected the idea outright, called it myth, fabrication, said I was a genetic hoax, some experiment gone rogue. The traitor's memory was useful for them. A perfect scapegoat. All blame, no complexity, a neat bow for a messy history. But the data was there. The symbols, the tech, the ships rising from moons long buried in darkness, and the sleepers. Thousands of them, all across the colonies. People who had never met, never studied the old codes, suddenly understanding them without training. Eyes lighting up at the sight of old glyphs. Soldiers who moved like they'd fought in wars they had no name for. Pilots who could fly alien vessels without instruction. They didn't need proof. They were the proof. Some wanted to build again, reclaim the glory, the ships, the weapons, the reach. But they forgot the truth we paid for in blood. So I reminded them. I released the war logs, not the victories, the horrors, footage, personal accounts, battle reports. I showed them what we had been, not gods, weapons wielded too long. And still, a few wanted that power. But not many. Not once they saw what it had done to us. I visited the Void Ark one last time. He was still there. He looked older now, not physically, but in the way shadows linger longer on people who've seen too much. "Thought you were done with ghosts," he said when I arrived. "Some ghosts need goodbyes?" He didn't argue. He just looked at the stars. "You were right," I told him. "We owed them the truth." He nodded. "They deserved it." A long pause. "I'm still not ready to walk among them," he said. "I know." "You?" I looked back at the transport waiting for me. "Someone has to teach them how to fly." Eloise became a voice, not just beside me, but across the stars. She was better at it, softer, smarter, less wounded. People trusted her. They should. She remembered enough to speak with authority, but not so much she drowned in it. A perfect bridge between what was and what would be. She taught the new generation of historians, of linguists, of thinkers who didn't want to rebuild the old empire, but to understand it, who didn't reach for glory, but for context. It was slow work, but it was honest. I started writing, not reports, not strategies, stories, accounts, memory logs, the kind of stuff that made commanders nervous, that turned statues into men and legends into flaws, the kind that made people see us not as gods, but as men who once forgot who they were. One day, a child found me at a lecture. She couldn't have been older than 10. Big eyes, sharp tongue, the kind who would have led legions in the old days. "Are we going to be gods again?" she asked. I smiled. "Do you want to be?" She frowned. Thought hard. "Number, I think we should just be better people." I nodded. "Good answer." She didn't smile, just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Then you better teach us right." That's the legacy now. Not power, responsibility. Not remembering for its own sake, but to make sure forgetting never becomes the easier option again. The ship still waits for me, orbiting the outer belt like a guardian. Silent, watching. It doesn't speak as often, because it doesn't have to. We remember now, all of us, and memory. Memory is a weapon that belongs to the ones brave enough to carry it without using it.